know the name Ada Blackjack. Most people don't. She wasn't rich or famous or strong in the usual way. She didn't win any medals. She just stayed alive. On a frozen island where everyone else disappeared, she sewed mittens, she boiled snow, she prayed, and somehow she survived. This is her story. There's a place so far north the sun barely visits. It's cold, quiet, and covered in snow. Even time feels slow there. In 1921, one woman went to that place, not to explore it, not to conquer it, just to survive. Her name was Ada Blackjack. She wasn't a hero. She didn't lead anyone. She didn't fight. She didn't even talk much. But when it was all over, she was the only one still alive. This is not a loud story. It's not full of battles or big speeches. It's about sewing mittens in silence, lighting a match just to stay warm. It's about quiet strength. Before the journey, no one knew Ada. She lived in Nome, Alaska. She was poor. She had no husband. Her son was sick. She tried to earn money by sewing clothes for others. She didn't want to be famous. She just wanted to buy medicine. So when a group of men needed a seamstress for a trip to Wrangel Island, she said yes. They told her, "You'll only be gone a few months. It'll be easy." But it wasn't. The trip by boat was rough. Waves crashed. The sky stayed gray. It felt like the sea wanted to send them back. When they reached the island, the men set up tents and raised a flag. They dreamed of claiming new land, but the Arctic doesn't care about dreams. Ada got to work. She sewed boots, fixed sleeping bags, boiled snow for tea. She watched. She listened. She kept to herself. She had a small diary. She wrote only a few words each day. Cold today, fixed socks, boiled seal meat, snow falling. Simple, but steady. The men argued. They worried. They yelled. Ada didn't. She just kept sewing. Picture her sitting in the tent, sewing quietly, while the wind howls outside. We're only just beginning. Before the island, there was Nome, a small cold town in Alaska. Before the snow and silence, Ada was just a mother, trying to survive. She was born in 1898 in a tiny village. She was a Nupiat, an Alaska native. She grew up learning how to live in the wild, how to hunt, how to sew warm clothes, how to survive the cold. But when she was just 8 years old, she was taken to a mission school. There they cut her hair, taught her English, told her to forget her own language and her own ways. As she grew up, Ada lost more than just her traditions. Her parents died. Her village changed. And she got married too young. Her husband drank too much. He hit her. He left her. They had 3 children. Only one survived. His name was Bennett. He had tuberculosis, a sickness that made it hard to breathe. He couldn't walk well. He cried from pain some nights. Ada moved to Nome, alone with her son. She hoped to find work, but it was hard. She cleaned houses, sewed when she could. Sometimes she didn't eat, so her son could. Every night she looked at him and thought, I must keep him alive, whatever it takes. She didn't dream of adventure. She didn't want glory. She just needed money for food and medicine. Then one day she saw a small notice posted in town. Seamstress needed for Arctic expedition. Short trip, good pay. She didn't ask where. She didn't ask why. She only asked, "How much will I earn?" They said she'd go to a place called Wrangel Island, far north, icy, empty. Just a few months, they said. She'd be back before winter. She believed them. They also told her she would be joining 5 men, 4 Canadian explorers and 1 Inuit hunter. Ada didn't know any of them. She didn't care. She just needed to bring money home. Before she left, she hugged her son tight, so tight he cried. She whispered, "Mama will come back. Be strong." He said, "Okay," and gave her a small smile. Ada packed a small bag, her Bible, her diary, a photo of Bennett. She got on the ship, the Silver Wave, and it disappeared into the fog. The ship reached Wrangel Island in early September 1921. It was gray, empty. Cold wind blew across the shore. There were no trees, no houses, just snow, rocks, and silence. The 5 men and Ada stepped off the boat. They raised a flag. The men called it a mission. They said they were there to claim the island for Canada. Ada didn't care about flags or countries. She was just cold. The men built a small camp near the beach. They used driftwood and canvas. It wasn't much, but it kept out the wind. They hunted seals and birds. They stacked food in boxes. They set traps for foxes. Ada stayed in the tent. She sewed mittens, patched coats, fixed socks. She was quiet. She missed her son. She wrote in her diary,
"Feel very sad today. I don't know what will become of me."
The men started to argue. One of them, Knight, was bossy. He gave orders. Another, Maurer, didn't like him. They had no radio, no way to send messages. No one would come until next summer. At night, the cold crept in. The wind howled like wolves. Ada wrapped herself in furs and read her Bible. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she prayed. Mostly, she waited. Winter came early. Snow covered the tents. The sea froze. Hunting became hard. The food boxes grew empty. The traps stopped catching foxes. The men grew thin. One of them, Knight, got sick. He coughed, sweated, and couldn't walk well. Ada tried to help him. She gave him warm tea, boiled seal meat, prayed. In the dark tent, she wrote, "God help me to do my duty." The others worried. If no one came in the summer, they'd be stuck. So 3 men decided to leave the island. They would try to walk across the ice, to get help. They left Ada and Knight behind. Before leaving, they said, "Stay strong, we'll be back." But Ada never saw them again. Imagine this. You're alone. The sea is frozen. The snow is falling. One sick man lies in the tent. And you are the only one left to care for him. No one is coming. No one knows where you are. The world has forgotten you. Ada didn't scream. She didn't panic. She boiled water. She cleaned wounds. She whispered prayers. She did what she always did. She kept going. The men were gone. The wind stayed. Ada was now alone with Knight, the sick man. He was very weak. He couldn't stand. He could barely speak. Day after day, Ada took care of him. She melted snow to make water. She cooked small pieces of meat when she could find them. She wrapped him in blankets. She cleaned his sores. He moaned in pain. Sometimes he cried out, but Ada never left him. She wrote in her diary, "Mr. Knight is very sick. I feel sorry for him." There were no doctors, no medicine, just Ada and her hands and her prayers. Outside, the snow piled high, the tent creaked in the wind. The sea ice cracked far away. Inside, the world had shrunk to just two people. Knight began to blame Ada. He was sick and scared. He shouted at her, told her she was doing everything wrong. Ada said nothing. She just worked harder. At night, she would sit by herself and cry. Then she would wipe her face and go back to him. She wrote, "I try my best to help him. I am not afraid, only very tired." Food ran low. She trapped a few birds, caught a few foxes, but most days there was nothing. Still, she stayed. When Knight grew too weak to speak, Ada stayed. When he stopped moving, she stayed. One morning she touched his hand. It was cold. Knight was gone. Ada didn't scream. She didn't run. She folded his blanket, closed her eyes, and prayed. Now she was truly alone. The island was silent. No voices, no footsteps, only the wind. Ada was 23 years old, and she was the only person left on Wrangel Island. She built a small shelter out of driftwood and animal skins. She moved away from the camp where Knight had died. She was too sad to stay there. She made a new fire, set new traps, started over. Each morning she boiled water. Each evening she read a little from her Bible. She wrote in her diary, "I am all alone now. I pray to God every night. I do not lose hope." She sewed clothes from fox fur. She built a new tent by herself. She made a tiny world that could keep her alive. There were no more maps, no more leaders, no more plans. Just one woman, in the cold, waiting for rescue, waiting for a sign, waiting to go home to her son. But no one came, not in the spring, not in the summer. Ada stayed strong. She hunted, she stitched new boots, she boiled tea, and she kept her son's picture close. The sun came back, then it left again. Seasons changed, but Ada stayed. 1 year alone, no people, no voices, only snow, sea, and sky. Every day she did the same things: check the traps, boil water, fix her clothes, pray. Her hands were rough from sewing. Her boots were made from fox fur. She had taught herself how to survive. She was not a hunter, not a leader, but she was alive. She wrote, "God help me to be brave. I think of my boy every day." Bennett's photo sat near her bed. It was her reason to keep going. Sometimes the fear came. What if no one ever came back? What if her son thought she was dead? She had no way to know, but she never gave up. Ada taught herself new things: how to shoot a rifle, how to stretch animal skins, how to keep a fire going in high winds. She set traps better than before, learned where the foxes moved. She cleaned her shelter, sang songs to herself, Sometimes she danced a little, just to feel human again. When the wind screamed outside, she whispered, "It's okay, I'm still here." She was always cold, always hungry, always waiting, but deep down, she still believed someone would come. In early summer, she saw something strange on the horizon, a dark shape. Not a cloud, not an animal, a ship. She blinked, stood up, ran toward the shore. She waved her arms, she shouted, and the ship saw her. They sent a small boat to the beach. A man stepped out. He stared at her and said, "Are you Ada Blackjack?" She nodded. The man took off his hat. "You're the only one left," he said. Ada didn't cry. She just whispered, "Yes, I waited." They helped her onto the ship, gave her food, a blanket, kind eyes. For the first time in 2 years, she heard voices, laughter, music. The island grew smaller in the distance, and Ada Blackjack sailed home. She had lived through what few people could even imagine, not because she was strong, not because she was trained, but because she was a mother, because she had faith, because she refused to give up. The boat reached Nome, Alaska in the summer of 1923. Ada stepped off the ship. People cheered. Reporters rushed forward. They asked her, "What happened out there? How did you survive? Were you afraid?" Cameras flashed, notebooks opened, but Ada stayed quiet. She didn't like attention. She didn't want fame. She just wanted to see her son. At the hospital, she finally held Bennett again. He was thin, still sick, but alive. She cried quietly and said, "I told you Mama would come back." For a short time, Ada was in the newspapers. Some called her a heroine, others called her a coward for not saving Knight. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know how she cleaned his wounds, how she prayed for him, how she stayed long after everyone else had left. People took her photo. Then they moved on. No medals, no big awards, no money. The men who planned the trip blamed each other. No one paid Ada the money she was promised. In the end, she returned to sewing, to quiet, to her small world. She used the little money she had to care for her son, and she never spoke much about the island again. Ada didn't ask to be remembered. She didn't want to be famous. She wanted to live, and she did. But the world forgot her. No statues, no history books, just silence. But now we remember. Ada lived a long life. She raised her son Bennett the best she could. She moved often. She stayed quiet. She never told her story in books. She didn't write a memoir. She didn't go on stage or talk shows. When people asked, "What was it like out there?" she would just say, "I did what I had to do." Years passed. Her son died before her. She grew old. And in 1983, Ada Blackjack passed away in a small care home in Alaska. She was 85 years old. There were no big headlines, no memorials, just a line in the newspaper. But her story never disappeared. She wasn't trained to survive in the Arctic. She wasn't an explorer. She had no gun when she arrived, no experience in hunting. She learned everything by herself, day by day, in the cold, alone. She sewed, she prayed, she kept her son's photo close, and she lived. In a world that celebrates loud heroes, Ada's story is a whisper, but it's a powerful one. She didn't climb mountains. She didn't lead armies. She didn't speak to crowds. She survived. And sometimes that is enough. If you ever feel forgotten, if you ever feel small, remember her. A woman alone on an island, no help, no voice, but still alive. Ada Blackjack, the woman the world forgot, but who never gave up.